Hello, everybody. This is Chris from National Parents Organization, and today I'm here with Lori Grover from Rhode Island. She's the executive chair of the Rhode Island chapter. How are you doing today, Lori?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit. How did you get involved with the National Parents Organization, and what's your passion behind shared parenting?
I became interested in the National Parents Organization because of the work that I do as a divorce mediator. Um, it seemed like a natural fit for the two things to go together. And I have actually been advocating with my clients to look at different time sharing, shared placement schedules for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came to find out that Rhode Island did not have a chapter, um, I guess it's kind of in my nature with the work that I do that I reached out and I felt like this was something that needed to happen here in Rhode Island, especially since we're not doing so well. We've gotten an F. So there's work to do here. There's awareness that needs to be brought to not only the public, but to parents. So here I am.
Well, yeah, we're certainly glad to have you. And were there any specific things that that go on in the Rhode Island courts that maybe frustrated you or really drove you, to maybe to make these reforms?
I think perhaps like many other states, Rhode Island is slow to catch up to the fact that times have changed, families have changed, the dynamics of families have changed, and fathers are starting to get more credit. At least I'm seeing that with my clients, for genuinely wanting to be in their children's lives. I think for a lot of people, the idea of dads changing diapers and dads doing the kinds of things that fell under the traditional mom umbrella, that was, I think, a fantasy. And I think some of it perhaps has been part of that narrative is something that maybe, some attorneys in family courts have been responsible for creating. But I definitely think that here in Rhode Island, the courts haven't caught up to the dynamic of how families are working nowadays, or the research that tells us how detrimental it is for children to lose a parent. So I
Yeah.
think those are the things that motivated me to want to step up and be part of the change and the education around such an important topic.
Yes, it certainly is an important topic. I mean, the latest research now shows that the more time that kids have both parents involved in their lives, the better outcomes they have. And so, why not give the kids the best chance they can, after divorce? Because certainly going through divorce is definitely a traumatic event for the kids, and I think the goal of a lot of people now, or they're starting to recognize, is it's important to reduce that trauma, right, as they go through that life event.
Oh, absolutely. And, so many of the things that I found myself researching over the last few years that seemed a little bit foreign to most people are starting to make it more into the mainstream now. And the one thing in particular, just to kind of piggyback on what you were talking about with trauma, is ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. I started becoming aware of those, that whole dynamic a long time ago, finally getting a name for it and acknowledging it for what it is. And now it is beginning to come into the mainstream and get the attention that it deserves, if not more. But this is what we really have to look at, I think, even as a society. The way we are, or we have in the past, assigned roles to mothers or fathers, it seems like we left out the component of how much fathers bring to the lives and development of their children. And I think, if we can start looking at this in that light rather than the way we have in the past, it's not about who's a better parent, and it shouldn't be about child support. It should be about how do we best meet the emotional safety and psychological needs of children, whether their parents are separating or divorcing at infancy or whether they're 14. Children need both parents in their lives. And I think that that's the foundation of the work that we need to continue doing as an organization and as a state chapter. That's my job.
Yeah, it's certainly so important to get these reforms through. Tell us a little bit about what's been happening in Rhode Island on the legislative front. Are you close to getting a bill? Is there an active bill? What's going on?
We are in the stages of working on that. Unfortunately, when I started the chapter, it was shortly before COVID started. So we had a little bit of I guess, a detour, if you will, in the plans. So rather than sitting idle, what I did was I took that time to put my board together, some really incredibly dedicated people. So we are on the threshold now of starting to look at that legislation and starting to move that in that direction. But the one thing that I'm so glad we got to talk today, because I'm very excited and I'm looking to share this. We just, one of the things that the board and I had a discussion about was public perception of what parenting should and shouldn't look like. And so one of the members of my board said, gee, wouldn't it be great if we highlighted or spotlighted parents that are doing a really great job?
Hmm.
And I thought about it for a second, and the little light bulb went off, and I kind of joked about it. I said, yeah, we could call it the Partners in Parenting Award. And we all just looked at one another. And I had the honor last week, actually, no, it was Monday, I'm sorry. I had the honor of making an award to the first recipients of the National Parents Organization of Rhode Island's PIP Award. We found a dynamic couple that exemplifies what shared parenting looks like. And we recognized them. We had our local TV station here, which was also awesome because they saw the value in the story. But we're using this as a way of showing that these people exist. These divorced parents exist, and this is what it looks like. So we are planning now to do this on an annual basis, and we're looking for submissions from either you can submit yourself or you can nominate someone else. But we're actually going to, and we'll be announcing it on our webpage with some more info, the NPO Facebook page. But we think this is a great way to highlight the parents that are doing it right. So we kind of got that going. And now that the fun stuff is done, now we're digging in on the legislative part because we need the reform in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to, bring awareness in your state that, you can do shared parenting and shared parenting does work and it's not impossible, right? Because I think a lot of the, certainly the professionals that, when I say professionals, I mean the lawyers and the judges and the domestic violence groups, they're typically the ones who advocate against shared parenting, and they're one of their big concerns is it doesn't work, and so that's fantastic. I think bringing that awareness to your state is so important, and I think that's something that other states could do as well.
I'm kind of hoping that other states will pick up the ball and run with it, and we'd be happy to share how we did it. Um, but again, to the point that you just mentioned, I think that the long-term goal, at least I'll speak for my state, is educating from the bottom up and meeting people where they are and showing them that there's a different way to look at this, that there's a different way to approach it. And I think for all states, there are some barriers and some hurdles to get over. I think because the idea of shared parenting, shared placement is so tightly tied to child support, has, in my view, unfortunately, tied the financial well-being of one or both parents to the backs of children of divorce. And I think that as a society, morally, that's something that we need to look at, because I don't believe that that's what children of divorce should be concerned about, even though it's not directly affecting them in that way. It's not how they see it. Children are just realizing that a mom or a dad isn't in their life as much. But when you get into the legal side of it, and even the way that divorce is, typically conducted, if couples or parents are using two attorneys, everything is tied to child support. And that's the piece that I think we need to really look at. And I see it a lot in my practice, although I see it less than I used to. Which, in fact, a very interesting statistic that just applies to me personally. I opened my practice, it'll be 15 years, 15 years? Yeah, 15 years in March, May, I'm sorry. And when I began, I want to say for about maybe the first year and a half, 85% of the couples and parents that I worked with would come in, and it was all about placement with mom. And we talked about what did visitation with dad look like. Here I am all these years later. 85% of the parents and couples that I work with come in wanting shared placement. So I have literally seen a flip in the last 15 years, which is very encouraging for me because dads are finally getting the credit that they deserve. It's redefining the conversation, I think. And I think it gives us something to build on more than we had when I first started out as a mediator.
Yeah, that statistic is really interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people, a lot of states have seen that when parents agree that the shared parenting is becoming much more common, as the social narrative is changed in our country. And I think the last big hurdle to get over is, of course, when the parents don't agree. And I think a lot of the disagreement typically is around child support and how much, who's going to pay who, and that sort of thing. And it's really a shame that the current legal system creates trauma for these children, over the sake of money, and that's just, of course, that's what we've all been trying to change, right? But getting the states to realize that they are creating those trauma bonds is really been difficult.
Oh, absolutely. Um, I think that success can happen. Um, when I began as a mediator, I found that it wasn't the success that I've seen. It wasn't from kind of going to attorneys or judges and looking for clients. And every state is a little bit different. In some states you have judges that are elected, some are appointed. That's not where my client base came from. So I found myself having to do, it was like launching the largest education campaign I ever did to promote what is mediation, because it also really wasn't very popular here on the East Coast. But I found it very successful. Through education, people started warming up to the idea. So we're taking that same approach here in Rhode Island with shared parenting, because people have to understand something, and you have to meet them where they are, and you have to show them that there's value to a different message. And sometimes it's hard to get people to open up to a different narrative, especially when they may be pushback from family. I call it the well-meaning friends and family influence. But education is the key. And I think that's one of the things that impressed me a lot about the National Parents Organization, is that there is a foundation here of education. It's not just an organization. There's teaching here. There's resources here. It's doing it right. And I think the more people have access to information like this, not only does it make our case stronger as individual chapters to move the narrative on this to a different place, but it brings people with you. And I think, honestly, that's the way real change happens.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And I mean, I grew up in New England as a point of reference, so I'm familiar with the area. I know there's some activity in Connecticut, and they're not exactly a National Parents Organization chapter yet. But in that region, have you seen a regional shift, or is it primarily a Rhode Island shift?
No, I think it's regional. As a matter of fact, Massachusetts made some pretty, I call them significant shifts, and Rhode Island has not yet from a legal standpoint. Massachusetts does have different variations of what parenting looks like. In their terms, we'll call it custody and placement. They do have different, there's three different buckets, if you will, that they will put parents in, where Rhode Island is still, we just have that initial mindset is that placements with mom, even during an initial stage of separation, which is something that I think is worth exploring as to, how good that is for kids, because you think about that, it's like just an immediate extraction of one parent out of a child's life. There's trauma. There's the start of it right there. I'm not real sure with Connecticut what they've got going on with their laws, because I actually do more work in Massachusetts as a mediator than I do in Connecticut. But Massachusetts got there a couple of years ago, and Rhode Island needs to move the needle.
Well, yeah, we'd certainly like to see that in Rhode Island. Of course, National Parents Organization came out of Massachusetts, and so we'd like to think that some of the work that was fundamental there in their laws. So, yeah, I think moving Rhode Island in the same direction is definitely what's important. And so, moving forward, people that are listening to this in Rhode Island, what can they do to help? What can they do to be active? What sort of things do you need in Rhode Island?
So we are looking for community support. We want members just to be part of the organization. We want to hear your stories, because those are the things that build credibility and momentum for the cause that we're trying to do. So certainly anybody can visit our Facebook page, and either email me at Lori Grover at sharedparenting.org, or direct message through Facebook. We'd love to hear the stories, because those stories all become the more powerful narrative for change.
Well, awesome. And we certainly appreciate all the work that you're doing out there in Rhode Island, and we wish you the best of success in changing the laws. We know it's a long, slow process, so we encourage you to keep at it, and then we have no doubt that you'll get there. Anything else that you wanted to talk about today?
I'll just note to everyone, it's my understanding that the winners, the first winners, I'm so proud of them, first winners of the PIP Award are going to be, I believe, featured on the national site. So everybody should stay tuned and learn more about Pamela and Eli Dunn of Warren, Rhode Island.
Well, we'll look forward to that. And tell us again, where can people reach you at? You have a Facebook page?
We do. It's National Parents Organization of Rhode Island on Facebook, where you can direct message or interact. There's lots of good information there on children and parents and parental alienation. And we try to keep that page lively. And if you have any suggestions or something in particular that anyone would like us to address, feel free to direct message or send an email.
Well, Lori, thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing all the progress and success that you're going to have in Rhode Island. And again, thanks for all the work that you do with National Parents Organization.
Thanks, Chris. It was great to be with you.
Great to be with you too.